So here is a slide where I am comparing the old law with the new law. The old law said that employees could take time off to vote if they did not have 4 consecutive hours before or after work to vote. Many employees' schedules and shifts were such that they did have 4 consecutive hours either before or after work to vote. So as a practical matter, the law really didn't do much for them. The people who did not have 4 consecutive hours before or after work to vote were entitled to take sufficient time off to enable them to vote, with up to 2 hours of that time paid. So again, if you did happen to have somebody who didn't have 4 consecutive hours before or after work to vote, then they could take enough time off to enable them to vote, and the first 2 hours of that time would be paid. The new law is dramatically more expansive, primarily because the 4-hour criteria has been eliminated entirely. So it no longer matters whether they have 4 consecutive hours before or after work to vote. The law simply says that registered voters can take as much time off as necessary to enable them to vote. And if they do need that time off, employers now have to pay for up to 3 hours of that time instead of just the 2 hours before. So not only do employers have to pay more employees, but they have to pay them for longer in some cases. The real problem is there wasn't much of an issue before, didn't really come up all that much, so it never was all that clear of, how much time is sufficient to be able to work. And now there's an open question. Does this mean that every employee in New York is entitled to 3 hours of paid voting leave? Well, probably not. But as a practical matter, it's going to be hard to know how much they are entitled to. And the question is, to what extent will employers want to essentially argue with employees over whether or not they have enough time to vote outside of their work schedules? These questions, like I said, really hadn't been answered in the past, so it'll be interesting to see. I can note also on the slide that the time off is by default either at the beginning or end of their shift, unless both the employee and the employer agree to something in the middle. But it is going to be hard for the employer to say, no, you have plenty of time, or 1 hour is enough, because before the employee actually shows up to the polls and finds out how long the line is, etc., who's to say exactly how long it will take.